What is up, Sagebrush? Welcome to this week's message discussion. My name is Eric, and I'm here as always with Pastor Andrew, and we are
good to see you.
Getting ready to talk about this week's message. Andrew, we are in the middle of our Wake Up Call series. Can you let everybody know kind of what we talked about this weekend and where we're going today?
Hey guys, good to see you. We are in the middle of our Wake Up Call series, and we've been talking about just these ideas of waking up to your life doesn't last forever. Your life is just a mist, and it appears for a short time and passes away. Todd's been, spraying us with air freshener like every weekend, just to remind us of that principle. But this last week, we talked about what does it really take to love other people. We started with the greatest commandment of loving God and then loving other people. And so this is that other part of it where, man, that love for God that you have should flow out to other people. So it was a great topic.
Yeah, I love this whole series. In fact, I was just looking at some stats, stats nerd here, looking to see it is one of the biggest, shared services after the fact. So if you look at our messages, if you didn't know, our messages are always available during the week afterwards. So if you can't catch it on a weekend live, you can always check it out on the app. You can check it out on our website. You can go back. It's actually on Facebook and YouTube and watch it. So a lot of people are watching this during the week, which I'm guessing, Andrew, that means that people are taking it and sharing it with others, or they're rewatching it because I think this series is so important because it's really talking about how to kind of live our best lives and have no regrets when we die.
Yeah, so true. And we're seeing lots of people make decisions, Eric, which is great. So we saw tons of people get baptized this last weekend. Man, it was so fun just to celebrate with everybody. And man, we're seeing people text in or call in just to make a spiritual decision. I mean, all day long and all week long, because people are sharing this. We're getting phone calls, we're getting text messages of people who are accepting Christ or interested in receiving Christ. And so pastors are able to talk with them. Some of our decision team members are able to talk with them on the phone. It's been great.
And I think that's one thing to keep in mind is God just doesn't move on the weekends, right? He's not moving on Sunday only. The Holy Spirit's working all throughout the week. And so we want to encourage you, maybe if you saw some of the messages and you thought, man, I really need to watch that again, go ahead and do that. Or you could share that link with a friend or family member, somebody that you know that's going through a tough time right now, or that needs something, needs this wake-up call type of reminder. So we're in that series, Wake Up Call. Today, what we're going to be doing is our message discussion. If you're just joining us, you haven't been with us before, we're going to be talking about some of the things from our small group curriculum. We're going to be asking some questions, and you can participate with us if you're watching live on Facebook right now. You can enter in the comments in the chat. If you're watching this with your small group, go ahead and press pause, and you can talk about it there. If you're at work on lunch break, just press pause and ask the question of somebody in the lunchroom with you. But Andrew, why is it so important that we get involved in a small group?
Yeah, I would say during this time where we have been kind of closed off, as well as during the shutdown, we realize just how important our relationships really are with other people. And so, man, I love being a part of a small group because it's my way to really connect with other people. And it's also my way of just integrating the truth that I learn on the weekend into my everyday life. These people can ask me the hard questions about, man, are you really living out that principle that we talked about? Are you really doing those different things? Whether it be, taking some time away from social media or whether it be really praying through some of these principles, man, my group really holds me accountable. And if you have yet to find a group, and want to find a group, we would love to get you into one. Just go to sagebrush.church/groups. We can get you signed up for a group. We can get you plugged into one today.
Yep. In fact, we'll probably put the link right here in the description, in the comments below as well. So I encourage you, this kind of walks us through that small group curriculum. Just answer the questions as we go. We usually start off with a icebreaker question just to get the conversation going. And today, this icebreaker question is, who do you know that shows Christ-like love to others?
For me, that's an easy one because we work around a lot of people here at church who, man, just live out a lot of these principles. But one of the guys I would say on staff who really lives this out is my good buddy, our care pastor, Corey. And Corey is probably the most caring, loving guy that we have on our whole entire team. He sits down with people all week long. And man, he calls a lot of people. Man, if people are in spiritual crisis or they got something going on, he's the guy that people sit down with. And man, every single person, he just overwhelms them with the love of God. He's just that kind, gentle soul. What about for you?
Yeah, I think I can think of, there's just numerous people, not only in my family, but here at work, things like that. So right around the church, I want to give a special shout out to somebody that I think shows Christ-like love, and that is Marlon. Marlon works here at the Riverside campus. And it is just like, when I'm giving a tour to someone who's new on the team or anything else like that, when I walk by her office, I'm like, that's Marlon's office. she's the best. She will literally do anything for you and
There's no
take care
doubt.
of whatever you need. And she's always got a great attitude and always looking for ways to help others and to serve really with that humble Christ-like attitude. Like I don't think she's ever on camera or anything like that.
No,
but
she's totally behind the scenes.
Yeah, doing things that make it possible for all of the rest of us to serve so many people. Like you said, all the people during the week that are calling in.
Correct.
Part of that has to
Marlon.
do because Marlon's helping us do what we need to do. So go ahead.
She also
and-
has the best snacks
Okay. All right.
in her office.
That's great.
Just so everybody knows.
Just so you know. So a lot of people shout out to Corey in there. Let's see. We've got some people. Oh, your spouse. Yeah, spouse, family members, those sorts of things too. Okay. So how have you personally been impacted by someone who shows you Christ-like love? What do you think?
Yeah, I think around here we get to give a lot of grace to one another. And I think about all the years that I've been here developing as a leader, all those people who've been very patient with me and who have offered grace for me when, I didn't deserve it, whether it was me just learning. I've been here now at Sagebrush for 11 years. And man, when I first started out, I was still, in my 30s, still trying to figure things out. And just the grace that people showed for me as I grew as a leader and the patience of those people who worked above me as my bosses, I am so grateful for that because they loved me through the process and they were honest with me when they needed to be, but they also gave me grace when I needed it as well. What about for you?
Yeah, I think when I look back at my life, up to this point, I think through and think about how little I deserve for what I have.
So true.
How little what I have now or what I've experienced has been because of me. And this is coming from somebody who's very high, achievement mindset.
Very high achiever right here.
Very high, like type A guy, go and get it. Let's go get things done. What can we do? What can we do? What can we do? But I realize that there's a gap between what I'm able to do and what kind of good things that have happened in my life. And what fills that gap is Christ's love being shown through people around me. And so I'm just so thankful that happens. And I think when you take time to look and realize and go like, man, how many life-altering situations have you avoided because someone stepped in and showed you grace, or someone stepped in and provided something that you needed when you needed it? And how many opportunities were you able to take advantage of or kind of fell into your lap because other people gave you that chance as well? And so we would be here forever if we tried to list out all of those people. So let us know in the comments what you think. How have you been personally impacted by someone who showed you Christ-like love? Now we're going to open up the Bible. Be in John chapter 13, verses 33 through 35. Let's see here.
I'm opening my great big Bible.
Yep, here we go. So John chapter 13, 33 through 35. My children, I will be with you only a little longer. You will look for me, and just as I told the Jews, so I tell you now, where I am going, you cannot come. A new command I give to you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you loved one another. So why do you think love for each other is such an important characteristic for followers of Jesus?
Well, and I love the whole context of this because Jesus, it's the night before he dies on the cross, right?
Yep.
And so he has already washed the disciples' feet. He's already served them communion. And now afterwards, he begins to teach them.
Right.
And where he really starts at the very beginning is he says, this new commandment I give you to love one another as I have loved you. And in saying that, he's not giving us a new commandment to love other people. They had that already. That's in the Old Testament way far beyond. But the new commandment was, as I have loved you.
Yep.
And that's the model that we have.
Sure.
Not comparing ourselves to other people, but with the same love that Jesus Christ has for each one of us. That's how we should love other people. And so, man, I think for us, this is the way that the world knows we're his disciples, just as it says. The world sees that there's something different in us by the way that we love other people.
Right. Yeah, I'd agree. And I think that that's very key is like that last line, by this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. And so I like always reading into that and saying like, what is it not saying then? Okay, so people will know you're my disciples if you vote a certain way. People will know you're my disciples, right? Like if you show up to church every Sunday. Yep. People will know that you're my disciples if you have one of these stickers on your laptop or your car or whatever, or you got, like a cross on your necklace, or if you have, God bless this house.
Yeah, or Sagebrush t-shirts.
Hobby Lobby thing in your house. No, it's literally if you love one another. And so how do you know not only that you're a follower of Christ, but you're a disciple, that you're literally a student of Jesus? Mm-hmm. How is it indicated in my life that I'm a student of Jesus? It's whether or not I love others. And so I think that's why it's so important. And Christ is like, Think about the first and last thing you say to people are usually like the most important. You can't ever have you can't make a first impression.
Yes.
So that first impression thing is important. But if you look at one of the last things that Jesus kind of teaches in front of everyone, he's just saying, hey, if you know nothing else, this is a new commandment. I'm going somewhere, and you guys need to take care of each other, and you need to love one another. And if you've ever had, a parent, a grandparent, aunt, uncle, someone that you love pass away, it's like those last words that they say to you, man, you hold them dear, because a lot of times that's what it is. Like, hey, I'm going somewhere. You can't come with me, but I need you to know this.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, and that's what I love, that next question that's there. It says, how does Jesus' impending death impact your understanding of the commandment that he gave here?
Look at that. Andrew throwing out the questions. We're just going back and forth. We got one camera. We got two hosts ready to go.
Make it happen.
Okay.
But no, I love that question, though, because Jesus knew that he was going away. And Jesus is saying that, hey, I'm leaving. And in John chapter 14, he says, hey, don't let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God, trust also in me. I'm going to heaven to prepare a place for you. So he was setting them up to leave.
Yep.
So he knew exactly what he was going to do. And he wanted this to be that characteristic that we're all known for. And that's the sad part about it, right? Because when you look at the church today, sometimes we miss this idea of loving.
Right.
We become that place of either people who are judgmental, or we become that place where people who weren't loving or weren't caring or weren't accepting and weren't kind.
Right.
And so many different things. And that's not what Jesus wanted in the beginning. So.
Right. And I think when you think about, his impending death, why did he die? He died because he was sacrificing himself for us. You could go through all this stuff and go like, he was God on earth in human flesh. Could he have just easily, in the same way as like when he was tempted, when Jesus was tempted in the desert by Satan, like Satan was like, hey, if you throw yourself down on those rocks, you could call the angels up to come and save you. You could do all these things. And I mean, Jesus at the end of his life is sitting here in a spot where it's like, oh, I can show you love that doesn't have to be sacrificial, that doesn't have to hurt me. I can show you love that's going to go, boom, great, we're going to find another way, but this was not the way that was intended. So he said, love one another as I love you. Spoiler alert, that means I'm going to die for you, right? I'm going to go the ultimate act of sacrifice and die. And so I think, just like you said, I think for me, I need to look at, if I'm going to love like Christ, that means that the things that I think are important need to be sacrificed for others. That means I need to sacrifice me and my attitude, my, whatever it is at the time for someone else. I need to stop feeling like I'm the victim here. And because Jesus never went to the cross as the victim, he went to the cross as a victor, saying, I'm doing this for others. And so
you have the best phrases. Went to the cross as a victor.
I don't know. Victim.
So good.
Change from victim to victor. I think that,
you are so
we
good.
Could make that into
I'm writing
a point
that down.
Somewhere. Okay.
I'm writing that down.
Stop it. Okay. 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 13. This is, another one of those 2 weeks in a row. We've had some lesser known
passages.
Just kidding. If you've been to a wedding anytime ever, this is probably something you've heard. Okay, 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 13. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put away the ways of childhood behind me. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three things remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. So why do you think the greatest of these three things that will last forever, faith, hope, and love, is love?
Now I'm going to preach my wedding message.
Let's do it. Yep.
Right now. Just make it happen. Side note, this is one of the best passages of Scripture ever, and there's a lady at our church named Ruth who read this passage at a wedding. Okay. And I kid you not, best part of the wedding.
Nice.
She's always on Facebook too. So if you see Ruth on there, Ruth, thank you so much for reading that passage. But I love this because of the things that we should do, love is the most important, right? And it comes down to that. Of faith, hope, and love, the greatest of these is love. And man, I think that, what pulls everything together is this concept of really loving. Man, if I have all these things before, and I like the very beginning of the passage where it talks about if I speak in the tongues of angels, but I have not love, I'm nothing.
Right.
I'm just a clanging gong. And I think without love, we're absolutely useless, and it comes back to the end and says, man, this is the greatest thing for us. And so I think for us as believers, it goes back to what Christ said.
Yep.
This is the way the world knows that we're different.
Yeah. And I think, I'm going to take this on like surface level here. I'm not digging into like the deep theological implications of this, but if you just basically take those three words and put them into John 3:16, what it does not say is it does not say because of God's immense faith. Right? It doesn't say that. Because God had immense faith, he saved the world. No, it doesn't say because of his hope in. No, it said for God so loved the world that he gave his only son. And so I think that that's the motivating factor. Faith and hope are very important, but if you don't have that base motivation of love, I think that is going to be the one that keeps the other two together. Because you really can't have the other two unless you're motivated by some sort of love. Like I can't have an active, involved, appropriate faith in God unless I have a love for him and his word. And the same thing is I can't hope in things to be better in the future that are going to be aligned with what God's will is unless I have love for God and love for others.
Yeah, and I love that what it says in Colossians chapter 3, which talks a lot about love as well. And it talks about how love binds these things together in perfect unity.
Right.
And that's this virtue. Above all these things, love is really that glue that holds them all together. And it's the way that it really holds the church together.
Yep.
Because if we don't have love for each other and we don't have kindness for each other, then people are going to see that we're not unified. And that's one of the reasons why I love Sagebrush is because, man, this is one of the most unified church. And we're unified for the reasons of, man, we really love God and we love other people and we want to make Jesus known.
Right. Yeah, and I love that. And I think when we're speaking about love here, the next question is in the definition that Paul gives of love. He talks about what love is and all these things. What description stands out to you, Andrew, the most? I mean, because you've probably read this or gone through this a billion times in all the weddings that you've done. What is it that stands out the most to you?
I think the definition that it really sits out is that it's not angry and not bitter and patient and
now you're
kind.
Preaching. Watch out, man.
And all those things you start sitting and thinking through, and it's like, oh man, in a marriage relationship, with a relationship with another person, this is hard.
Right.
This is not easy for us to do, to not be all those things, because we get selfish, right, don't we? And loving and caring another person requires some self-sacrifice.
Yes.
It requires me laying down my own life for the sake of the other person. And that's what rings out in this passage of scripture is that, man, love is about limiting yourself so that you can really care for another person.
Yeah, and I think this is a good litmus test, too, to go through. And, yeah, I can pick out the ones, and I think the ones that stand out the most to me are the ones that I'm like the least good at, I guess is what I would say. But I think, evaluating your heart and your motivations based on all of these things is probably a good idea. Because when you say, okay, I'm acting in a certain way and I'm using, like I see this all the time, I'm using God or I'm using faith or I'm using the Bible to justify it. And then you look back and you go, okay, I'm being loving because I'm doing this. Well, am I? I mean, look at the motivations. Is it patient? Is it kind? Is it not going to be envious? Not going to boast? Not going to be proud? Not dishonor others? I mean, even the not self-seeking, that right there, if you just made a box around that and said, it's not self-seeking, and then just go, okay, that I could probably evaluate a lot of the actions I have and see whether or not they're truly loving or not. Because it's not a, yeah, but also, or except in these cases, it's all of these things. And love never fails. I think that's another important piece too.
Well, and so often we hear this passage at weddings, but it really wasn't meant for married couples.
Right.
And Todd shared about that a little bit in a message previously. But this message was really meant for like the idea of church being unified.
Right.
It was for people who just didn't want to get along with each other. And so Paul lays this out of, hey, these are some ways for you to get along with one another.
Yep. Yeah, and I like where it says, prophecies will cease, tongues will be stilled, knowledge will pass away. So all these things that I think if I'm not careful, I will lean on instead of love, right? I will lean on my own knowledge. Well, I need to tell you the truth because, the knowledge might pass away. The prophecy might pass away. The things that I'm saying might pass away, but it's how I'm actually treating one another. If you think about that, is most of the time people, they only really remember how you treated one another, and they don't really care as much about all of the other things you said or you did. And I think that we're seeing a lot of this today where you go, okay, someone might be prolific in this area, but if he or she treated people terribly, then that kind of overshadows some of these other pieces.
And that's ministries, right? You see some incredible speakers, right? Who are the most amazing speakers in the world, but then things come out about their past that maybe they weren't that loving in their life, in their everyday life. And because of that, it just discredits everything that they've done.
Yeah, so seeking to be loving is super important. And as we move on here, when we're going to ask you which of the descriptions that Paul gives of love, which is most natural for you to exhibit and which is most difficult. So what's the most natural? What's the most difficult? And then how can you make improvements in the areas that are difficult?
I have an easy time with kindness. I'm a generally kind person.
Sure.
My disposition is very positive, and so I have an easy time being kind to others. I have a hard time with patience.
Yep.
And I hate to say that because now I'll hit every red light going home, but I have a difficult time being patient, whether it's with my kids or with my family or everything else. And so I think that I need to work on patience. What about you?
Yeah, I think all of them at some time or another are tough, for me. I think the easily angered part is probably the biggest one that's difficult for me, and that goes along with the patience. Right? It's like if I'm not patient about something, I get easily angered about it. But the other piece is...
They do daisy chain, don't they?
Right, yeah. And the patience piece is like, there's plenty of people that are like, you know what? Something happens to you on a Friday at work, and it's like, you're going to deal with it on Monday. Don't worry about it all weekend. All weekend it will live rent-free in my brain. It's like, oh, don't worry about that. You're going to see them the next time. Or I'd say, we'll get them next time. And every time it's like, nope. And I would just fixate on that thing. And I realized that that's something that I need to stop. I need to stop being, that easily angered or having that lack of patience as well. Mm-hmm. So what do you want us to do moving forward, Andrew?
Yeah, a lot of times we do some action things at the very end where we talk about you as a group going out and doing things that are loving for our community or something else. But we really want you to think in your small groups, how can you be more loving to one another?
Right.
And what is it that you can do this week just to care for one another? And so take that away this week, do that as a group, and I believe that'll grow you. And again, if you haven't found a group yet to experience this type of stuff, please take the time right now to go to sagebrush.church/groups. We'll get you all the information.
Yeah, so groups, super important. Make sure that you take care of that. Also, save the date for Easter, sagebrush.church/Easter. We will be having services online. We'll be having services on TV, and then we'll be having services in person at our campuses. But you will need to make a reservation for that, and we will let you know when those reservations are open. They're not open right now. And then finally, we also have our Stages of the Cross experience at all of our campus locations. Andrew, you want to give us a little bit of an overview of what Stages is going to do for us?
Oh man, I'm super excited because last year we had this whole thing
we were planned out, ready to
Easter.
Go.
I mean, we had set it up. It was ready
and
to
then
go.
COVID, boom, no Stages.
Then COVID hit. So this year, our Stages of the Cross is an interactive experience where you actually walk through the days leading up to Christ's death, burial, and then his resurrection too. So it's a way for you to celebrate exactly what Christ did for each and every one of us. Yep. This is an event not just for you, but for your groups to come together, as well as for your family to come to experience. Because man, it's going to be interactive. There's going to be an opportunity to take communion during this. And this is available not just at the Riverside campus, but all of our physical locations, with the exception of down in Belize, because they're still kind of locked down a little bit, as well as in Los Lunas until we can get everything back up and running there.
Exactly. So if you go to sagebrush.church/stages, which we'll put the link in the comments below, you can reserve your time. That is also a ticketed event. It will be free, but just make sure that if you're going to sign up for your group or your family, just one person needs to go in and get as many tickets as you need for those times. If the time slot isn't available, that means it's full. So we want to make sure that we give you first opportunity to sign up for that if you haven't already. Let other people know about it because it's going to be a great experience, a walking experience all through like Andrew said, the moments leading up to the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ. Anything else?
Yeah, I would say also, if you want to volunteer, we need volunteers for the Stages of the Cross. And so that's also available on our app. You're going to see, if you click it, that there's an opportunity either to get tickets or to volunteer. Yep. And man, we need a bunch of different team members who will partner with us just to make Christ known. We know that there's a lot of people over Easter who are thinking about what Jesus went through for us. And so this is our opportunity to reach the lost world around us.
Great opportunity. And so this week, go ahead and make sure that you are showing love to God and love for others. On behalf of Andrew, I'm Eric. Have a great week.